Welcome, Warriors, to episode 20 of the Legacy Warrior podcast. I'm here with my partner in crime, my beautiful wife, Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, Warriors.
Y'all know I try to get them brownie points sometimes. I got to say it like I mean it. Look, I cannot wait. You guys are in for a treat on episode 20 with one of our dear friends, somebody I've known, probably more than 2 years from now, who has shown up the same way every single time. We've met in person. We've did clubhouse rooms together. We've done so much amazing things. And she's just got a beautiful heart. She's really a champion to bringing out the best in people. But most importantly, she lives authentically and congruent with who she is. So we've got Alexis McQuillen. She's a lot like me. She has literally lived multiple lives. And I can't wait to dig into some of this because, dude, there's going to be so many takeaways that you have today. And Alexis and I will probably call each other dude during the show too, because that's just kind of how we do. So what's up, girl? What's happening? I am so happy. And Stephanie's so happy to have you on the show.
I'm stoked. I finally made it. I feel like that's so cool. I want to say this. What's up, Warriors?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
I need to get my voice gritty, like when I lost my voice in corporate America, because I sounded like a WWE wrestler. Like, yeah, let's go, Warriors.
Hell yeah, brother.
Oh, man. So you guys know what we do. I always like to start with the bio of who the person is that we're even having on the show so that you can understand some of the credibility that they bring, because it's the story to me that really serves the purpose. But I love when people have done things with their story and turned their trials into triumph. And Alexis has done that. And she really is the epitome of what a warrior is. And so currently she's a divine interventionist. And we'll talk about what that means a little bit later in the show. She's an intuitive coach, and she is the founder of I Am Moonchild. What I love also is that she's also her secret weapon. She's also a marketing and sales genius with a ton of experience over the last, 10 or 15 years, that just lets you continue to build your own business, but also help other people build theirs along the way. So I'm excited to dig in. So I'm going to ask the first question. We just going to.
Well, actually, I want to jump in for a second.
Go ahead, baby.
Because I just have to say, I love Alexis too. From the time we met her, I just love her energy and her aura. She just always exudes such positivity and just very happy, energetic person. And another thing that I love about her is we connect on the self-awareness and emotional intelligence. She's very strong in that. I think she has a different approach when it comes to that than most people. And so you guys are in for a real treat because she really has a lot of knowledge on this. So really pay attention.
Yeah, I think we always give the 4 keys. She's got some super valuable 4 keys, but you're going to want to write down some of the stuff that we talk about. Because look, here's the reality. The painful moments in our life are built to help us step into our purpose. Now we have the choice. Matter of fact, next week's episode, we talk about choosing your heart. We have the choice of whether or not we run from those things that we feel like are meant to beat us down, or whether we use those things as empowerment to build our life and really move into the best version of who we are versus living at a fraction of our potential. Alexis, you've done that like in spades, man. Like you've done so much of that. And I know that you and I have a lot of similarities with having, for you, your mother, both my parents, for me, that really struggled with substance abuse and what that did and how that led to a lot of chaos in your childhood. So as always, we start off like, let's talk about some of the pain. Let's talk about what you learned, and we're going to talk about the purpose. You know that because we already talked about that, but I want to make sure our listeners understand the journey we're going to take you on today. And so talk about that beginning journey for you, because it really was tough and something that you had to use as rocket fuel eventually. But we don't always use it as rocket fuel at first. That's for damn sure. So talk to us a little bit about that story.
That's for sure. Yeah. I mean, I grew up with a mom who was a severe alcoholic, and she was also addicted to prescription drugs. And so my childhood was moving around a lot, kind of jumping from man to man. And I mean, severe of like, when I was younger, she was functional. So she could work, but at night, and I mean every night, she would get drunk off vodka, and to the point where she's slurring her words. And like when you're drunk, you get that glaze in your eyes. It's really scary to like see your parental figure looking that way and bumping into walls and falling onto counters and not really understanding what alcoholism is. And so it's jarring and it's scary. And so in my childhood, my escape was to get outside, to go play with friends, to stay at, their houses, anything I could do to not be in my house because I didn't understand what was going on. It was painful. And so my escape was shutting those painful emotions down and playing with my friends because that felt like family, that felt like home. That was my safety. And so growing up, there was a point in time where, that's a long story, but my dad ended up taking my brother and I in. And so I wasn't living with my mom through my high school years. But it started getting really rocky during that time. I just remember her kind of, I don't know if you guys heard this before, but like people that are severe alcoholics, it's like their brain kind of reverts back to the age that they started drinking. And so she, during those years in high school and even my early 20s, she started becoming the child, like having, pink glitter walls and stuffed animal on her bed and glitter, what are those, light up shoes, and kind of throwing tantrums. And I just remember kind of being the adult. Like I have this specific memory in high school where I had a friend, my brother and I in the car, and my mom must have drank in the bathroom at the Walgreens. And she was already drunk and she was kind of swerving on the road. And I got so angry. And I remember at the stoplight telling my friend, get out of the car, like all of us get out of the car, like being the adult, because I was like, this is unsafe. And then also in my early 20s, kind of mothering my mother. It just felt really painful. I didn't realize I had so much anxiety from it. And then when I was 23, I remember she was coming over to my house. It was a week before my birthday. And it was kind of the last straw for me. And I remember her going into my house, trying to take pills out of my cabinet. She was showing up, she already showed up intoxicated, trying to take Adderall out of my backpack in front of me. And I lost it, guys. Like that is the first time I had ever yelled at an adult in my life. I screamed, I cursed, like it was, I don't even know if I think that's the first time I ever did that in general with anybody. And I was really hurt by that. And I made her leave. And a week later, it's like weird when I tell this story because it comes back, the emotions.
Yeah.
It's okay. Take a second.
So a week later, she passed away from an overdose. And I thought it was my fault. And part of me, like, there's this little tiny part of me that still thinks that, because how sad and depressed and guilty did she feel the next day when she was no longer intoxicated? Because I'm sure she remembered that, and she'd never had that type of interaction with me before. And it probably felt like so overwhelming because she really was a good person. And so she overdosed a week after my birthday. Wow.
No, I love it. And this real people, real stories, real triumph. So we just appreciate your authenticity and your vulnerability right now, because this is the things that people are struggling with.
And so many people are going to relate to you right now. You're going to help them.
It's so wild, you guys, because that was in 2015. So I'm going on year 8, and the things that I'm experiencing right now, because I was like, I'm good, like I'm healed, and grief and loss, like it does get easier, but like you have these moments, like I'm having moments at year 8 where I'm thinking about, wow, she must have been so sad all the time and struggling so hard with addiction. And I know what that feels like, because when she passed away, I didn't know how to cope, because like I said earlier, I was so afraid in my household that I didn't understand emotions. So I shut the painful stuff down, and I lived that.
Yeah.
up until about 2 years ago. And so when she died, what happens? You're grieving, all the painful emotions come in. It's a roller coaster. It's crazy. It's surreal. It's intense.
How
And
old were
so
you? How old were you when
I
she died?
I had just turned 24. So I went into a dark, dark space, and the only way I knew how to cope, because I didn't understand painful emotions, was to numb myself with the Adderall during the day
Mm-hmm.
and to drink a bottle of wine at night. Hey, I gained some weight, let me tell you.
Yeah.
From the alcohol. So yeah, I was just numbing myself, and I didn't. It was just a disaster those 3 years, you guys. It was so intense. Don't recommend. Highly don't recommend.
Yeah. I think I just love the honesty and the raw emotion of it, because so many people really, they just keep running from the emotion all the time, and they don't ever process it. And instead they do turn to drugs, to alcohol, like you did. And they start repeating the cycles, even though they said growing up, I'm never going to do that. Never going to do that. And I did too, with the anger and with all the stuff that I had been through, and the way that I struggled in my late teens and early 20s. Not with addiction as much as, but like addiction was attention for me. I couldn't get enough attention from people. I always wanted to fight all the time. So it manifests different for every single person. But I think, and I love that you talked about how you started taking Adderall, how you started drinking. What was the moment for you when you really took a step back and said, shit, I cannot live my life this way, and I have to do something different? Because that's a really hard place to look at yourself with that kind of realness, and then make the choice to just go all in on getting away from the things you're self-sabotaging yourself in that moment, and getting away from those things and moving towards positive things. What do you think that was for you? Was there a series of things? Was there one moment? Like, how did that look for you?
I can think of a couple different things. And the interesting part is, I feel like that was really part of my purpose, is to understand addiction, because you can really only understand addiction so far. And being addicted to Adderall was crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a moment where I had the true addiction story too, of like, whoa, I'm addicted to Adderall, because not only am I getting prescribed Adderall and taking way more than I should, I would go through it in like a week, and then I would find people and buy the Adderall off them. And so I was probably prescribed 20, 30 milligrams a day, and I was taking over 100.
Holy
Oh,
mackerel.
Yeah.
what?
So basically, yeah, it was really bad, and I was numbing myself with it. And when you take that much Adderall,
Can I
you
just
become a
ask real quick,
zombie.
what
Yeah.
exactly is Adderall? Because I don't even know.
Oh yeah,
What?
it's for ADHD. It's awful.
Oh.
I think everybody should be like banned. That
So is
drug
it
is
really
awful.
supposed to mellow you? Is that what the intent of the drug is?
It is, but if you take enough, it's an upper. But then you crash, and then
Mm-hmm.
you walk around like a zombie. And so at night, and then because you're so high, I was drinking alcohol to combat that at night.
Oh,
To bring you back down.
wow.
To bring me back down. Yeah.
That's tough. Yeah.
So I was just taking so much and buying it, and then I got cut off. This is so embarrassing, but it's like, it is what it is.
It's
Um,
powerful, not embarrassing.
oh good.
Powerful.
But I remember like the guy that I was buying it from, like he just like cut me off. He probably was like, this girl's like, she needs to stop.
Yeah.
Divine
Oh.
intervention.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
And so I ended up getting off Adderall. I went cold turkey. And then about 2 years later, I'm like, I'm good. Like I could take Adderall. Like I'm not addicted anymore. Started taking it, got addicted again, did the same exact thing. I got off of it in February of 2021. It was very painful for me, because I had to really confront the issue of like, wow, I'm addicted to Adderall again. This is even more intense than it was in the past. I have to tell my boyfriend. I have to tell my friends, because if I don't tell them, I have no accountability.
Yeah.
But then I knew that if I told my best friend or my boyfriend to help me, I would weasel my way around it and I wouldn't get off of Adderall. So I had to tell my boss's wife,
Oh,
and I
wow.
had to tell a doctor at the gym, and they worked together for me to drive to her house in Scottsdale, which is what, 20, 25 miles every single day to get a pill, half a pill for 30 days straight.
Oh
Wow.
my
It was
To
that bad
wean yourself back off of it.
to wean myself off of it. Yeah.
And
So I'm free.
it's so crazy because
That's
you
amazing.
reverted back to it. And I think this is where people struggle. If you're struggling with alcoholism, and I've seen this, and I've seen people go down a really dark path afterwards. You feel like so long that you haven't drank or you haven't taken Adderall, you haven't done something. And then you're like, I'm good. Like
Mm.
I got it locked down. I'm totally okay. And it only takes the one time to drive you back down into that slippery slope. And the reason is because we don't actually process the emotions and the traumas and the things that led us down the path of doing that anyway. And so
Yes.
what for you was, so you
Mm.
get addicted and then you get addicted again. And I'm sure there was embarrassment and there's regret there and there's all these things. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes your story so powerful is for a second time you had to make this choice. Did you lean into processing the emotions from the trauma, your mom's death, all the things you had dealt with at this point in your life in order to make sure that you didn't return to the substance whenever that would be? It could be a year, it could be a decade from now, but to make sure that you really healed enough where now you're using your pain as purpose the way that you do. How did you process those emotions?
That's a really great question because during that time, I was so afraid to get off the Adderall. I didn't think that I'd be able to do my work, my job properly. I didn't think that I'd be smart enough to continue doing what I was doing. And so I hired this mentor, and I didn't realize, like, I wasn't aware that this was related to my trauma. Like, I had no idea.
Right, right.
Majority of the time we don't. And then we're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
It's like the epiphany that happens later, right?
yeah.
You're like, oh, son of a, you know what? Like,
Yeah.
I got to process these emotions that I've been running from.
Exactly. So I hired this mentor, and I was like, and long story short, basically what we came down to was learning that I had been running all through my high school years and all through my 20s, running away from pain.
Mm,
And I know that sounds like, it seems like, oh yeah, duh, because I told the story, but like I did not know. I had no idea. And so little by little, I felt like even just an inch of sadness, grief, anger, irritation, any of that felt like I was drowning. And I'm still
mm,
working through this.
mhm,
And so I imagined a brick wall and taking the one brick out, letting the pain in. And then if it became too much, I just shoved that brick back in. And I do
mm.
that little by little. But it was with the support of a mentor really helping me understand that the pain from, was from the trauma that I went through with my mom dying, and or even my childhood. Like I said, still working through this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like you said, you did this all to numb the pain, right? So you were just numbing it. You never dealt with any of it.
Right.
And was there like a specific moment that happened for you where it was like, I just can't do this anymore? Like I need to actually figure out what is going on with me.
Yes. Because, oh yeah. Wow. So I remember like being in my apartment by myself every night, because at the time I lived with my brother and he worked night shift. So I was all alone. And what happens when you're all alone? You have to confront your pain.
Yeah, yeah, you sure do.
And it didn't matter at that point how much Adderall I was taking or how much I started drinking because the Adderall, the offset. That was even 2 years ago, or what, 3 years ago. I can't do math. But I just remember none of that stuff was numbing it anymore. And I remember laying
Mm.
on the chase of my couch, bawling, like the worst bawling, craziest cries that you've ever had in your life. That was every night for a week straight.
Mm,
And I was like, this is not going away. Like, I'm getting emotional even thinking about, because I'm like, it was so like, I just felt so alone,
mm.
so abandoned.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where I was like, I have to figure this out. Like, I can't, this is too much for me to handle. And it's either take my life or get help. Like those were my
Mm,
only two options. And I definitely was leaning towards the other end of the spectrum
sure.
for sure. But, um, I think in those moments, I mean, maybe not for everybody, but for me, it was like a little voice in my head that's like, you got this. Like,
Mm.
you got this. And so, yeah, that was the moment. It's just like, it sounds simple, but yeah, crying every night for a week. Oh, gosh.
It's funny because you look back now in hindsight, and it's almost easier to be like, it's like you're saying, it sounds simple, but we all know, for those people out there listening, it's not simple. Alexis can make it sound simple. Stephanie can't. I can't, only because we live the experiences. And I want to touch on something that you said, because I think it's so important for people. The vulnerability, and for me, vulnerability is like the ultimate flex of strength for men and women. But fellas, if you're listening out there, like,
Mm-hmm.
man, you got to really, we're not taught to be vulnerable. So it's some deprogramming there, but it's understanding that the ultimate flex of strength is that, because you're leaving yourself open to hurt and pain, and, somebody taking advantage of you maybe, or judgment, or whatever that is, or all those things you do internally to yourself. And for you to reach out to somebody, for you to reach out to your boss's wife, knowing that your friends, although they loved you, they might have enabled you to continue down the path you were on, but to reach out to somebody that would keep you accountable. There's some real power in that. And I don't want people to miss that part of your story. It's really hard to do things alone. You do need a tribe of people in a community that can help you. You still got to make the decision. You still got to do the work. You still got to move forward. You still got to take the step when you don't want to. But man, when you can have some people to help rally in your corner, when you can get out of your own way and say, nobody cares about me, nobody's going to listen to me, people are going to judge me, like, people already don't like me, that I screwed over. But all these things you say to yourself to prevent you from reaching out. And you can say, damn, I listened to Alexis's story, and the power in her vulnerability has put me in a position where I want to reach out to somebody, and put me in a position where I need that accountability mentor too, just like she had, in order to overcome where I'm at and start using my past as fuel for my future instead of the anchor that's drowning me. I think that's so powerful. And so I just wanted people to understand that, and you guys need to write this down, because maybe it's not for you, maybe it's for somebody you know. I want people to really understand the power of a community and the love of what just one person can do for you in the moment that you feel the most alone. Because I feel you when you talk about taking your life and you didn't care, and you didn't even really care about yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel when you're like, man, there's a little voice, though, just enough of a voice left to say, you got it. Keep moving. It's
Keep
going to get
moving.
better. It's going to get better. I'm worth it. I got to love myself enough. And then you just catapult yourself into this healing journey where life transforms. So I just wanted to just edify that and just say, hey, I'm really proud of you for making those decisions in that moment. And I also wanted to ask you a question, because you and I talked recently about an epiphany that you had. And I think this is so important. Triggers don't go away, y'all.
No,
Triggers are for real.
they don't.
Just as human beings, we got
And
triggers.
we can't escape ourselves.
Bro.
No matter how much you try, you can't escape yourself.
So you have things that come up and it triggers you. And Stephanie talks about this a lot with self-awareness, and we've talked about it in previous episodes. Triggers are your opportunity to improve your life and improve where you're headed, if you see them as triggers. So you had a trigger happen really recently, and I love what you told us about it. And it's so powerful because it's another evolution in who you are as in maximizing your own potential. So talk to us about that recent trigger, because it was something that I know I could get triggered by. Stephanie does. We were laughing before the podcast about it.
I definitely have.
Talk about that for you.
Yes, because when I feel like when you get to a point of your healing journey and you start becoming self-aware and you want to grow and you want to learn about yourself and you want to overcome these things, like these type of situations, you're like, yes, I did it. So that's how I feel about this situation. And basically, I think all through high school, all through my 20s, and now into my 30s, I would get very triggered, activated, whatever word you want to use, about friends, close friends, and even acquaintances. And I can go as far as saying, you guys would have parties at your house with friends, and I'd be like, man, like I wish I was invited. Like,
Mhm.
and then
That's
with
real.
It's real. And then even like close friends, or even my best friend, hanging out with other people, traveling, going to events. If I wasn't invited, and let me just say, majority of the time, I don't even want to go. That's how like the contradiction here,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
I know people feel that. Like you don't even want to go, but you're mad because you didn't get invited. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it's so
We've done it too.
ridiculous. It's so dumb.
Yes.
So I've known this for years, and I'm like, oh, I got to work through like my sense of belonging, blah blah blah. But it wasn't until recently where my best friend was um, scared to tell me that she was going with a friend to a different city for a concert, and I just felt really bad. Like I'm at that point in my journey where I'm like not selfish, like I feel bad. I'm like, and it's embarrassing because I'm like, that's bullshit. Like you can't tell your best friend about having other friends. Like what?
Yeah.
So dumb. So I was like, okay, I'm so sorry you feel that way. I really want to work this out. And I got the support of another friend who's in the coaching space. And what it came down to was my abandonment issues and kind of like you all, just for me, it's a different way. I was abandoned emotionally by all of the adults in my life, in my, in my youth. And so, like I told earlier, my friends were my safe place. That's my family.
Yeah.
And so if they were going to be in a gathering or go traveling and do stuff without me, it's like, the trauma, comes to the surface again. It feels like my family's being ripped away from me. I feel like I'm being abandoned, which is really bizarre to think, right? Like you wouldn't think those two situations would correlate, but they do. And I'll tell you this, once I brought that up to the surface, I can tell you right now, I can think about my best friend going out of the country, hanging out with other friends, and I feel peaceful in my entire being. And so it's very impactful to be able to look at repeating triggers and go within. So, because once you uncover it, there's freedom there.
I wanted to ask you, through all this, because you said you masked the pain and all that, and then you had a mentor. So what types of things helped you start to heal? Like what kinds of, like, some people do journaling, or they write something, or they talk to someone close to them about it. Like what kinds of things helped you to start opening up about the things that were bothering you?
So I worked with this mentor for a couple years. And what I want to say is like, this wasn't a quick fix. There's no magic pill. Like I did the work, and I worked with her, like I said, for 2 years. So step by step, I learned new things. I now have more tools in my tool belt to handle pain and emotions and trauma. And the biggest things that really stick out for me is presence. As simple as that sounds, like practicing presence in my day to day, so I'm not in my head, allows me to understand what I'm feeling from moment to moment. And if I understand what I'm feeling from moment to moment, I can now understand, oh, I'm feeling sadness, and I have the choice to let this in. And if I let it in, that's very healing for me.
So you had to learn how to actually feel emotion because you had been numbing it. So you had to learn what emotions felt like. What is what it sounds like.
And I'm still learning them. And it's weird because I'll feel like a specific emotion, like that feels like sadness. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, that's not like the sadness I was feeling last week. Like there's so many different types. And so, I'm like a little kindergarten learning how to like understand emotion.
But it's so true. It's like,
well, this is new to me because I've never heard someone talk about, I guess I've never talked to someone who actually really numbed it and didn't have, never really dealt with the emotion to where they don't even really know what emotion feels like. That's what it sounds like you're saying is like, you're having to connect what emotion even feels like what.
100%.
To where like I would be, because like personally, I didn't have that kind of thing happen to me. So like I know my emotion. I guess I feel more in touch with my emotions. Like I don't have to be like, oh, that's what anger feels like. Or, you know what I mean? Like I know what anger feels like. So it's very interesting to hear you say like you had to literally process that, even what an emotion feels like. because
Oh
of
yeah.
Adderall. Like, very interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
Alexis, I like what you said too. It's like the type of emotion, and it's so layered, by the way. And as you
Mhm.
heal from things, you can tap into other emotions you've kept kind of locked away. For me, a lot, it was just anger and lashing out, and people felt like they were walking around in eggshells around me, and my tone sucked, even if wasn't cussing at somebody. And I can still have a tendency to do that now in my marriage as a dad, like take a negative tone. E- and I'm not even mad at them or anything. It's just like I'm frustrated, or I'm tired, or I'm
Yeah.
whatever's triggering me in the moment. But for me, it took a long time too to figure out, hey, this anger emotion is the easy part of it. But if I really peel that layer back of anger, I'm actually sad. I'm actually sad I
Yes.
didn't get a phone call from somebody. I'm actually sad I didn't, this didn't happen or that didn't happen. Or I'm trying to grip control of things that are uncontrollable in my life. And I'm squeezing myself to death because I'm trying to just grip control so tight instead of just taking action and allowing the pace of life to go through what it goes through. So I feel a lot when you say you had it's like, I never felt this type of sadness before. Let me dig into that. Talk about the self-awareness it takes, and talk about that journey of self-awareness for you, because I know this is a huge thing for you, especially as an intuitive coach. Talk about the self-awareness for you that it takes to grow, to uncover the third layer of sadness that you hadn't experienced before then.
So the biggest thing, and that's why I said presence, because you can't fully understand your experience without being consciously aware. And so my first steps, like with this coach, was practice presence. What do you feel? What do you see? Tap into
Mm-hmm.
the five senses, go on walks and just be present. And then also getting out of the mind, because um, truly, like, the mind clouds everything. Everybody knows this. Like, you're in your day to day, you're busy, you jump from one thing to the next, and like you're just living a life half lived.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like getting in, um, becoming aware of when I was thinking. So now, like, I'm very aware of when I'm thinking, and I can shut it down like that. But that took a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I was able to become present, get out of my head and into my body and start feeling, like I said before, with the brick wall, I would start letting emotions in, and I'm still letting emotions in. And that's where I'm at now. Like, I still feel like I have so much to learn around emotions, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
pinpointing, like I said, like the sadness, like what is this sadness versus this sadness feels like. And so I guess I don't have much to say other than presence, and getting out of my mind has helped me do that. Like, I'm still learning.
Yeah. And that's some real
I'm not
freedom.
an expert.
And that's freedom, though.
Yeah.
The freedom you get from that is tremendous, that so many people rob themselves of because they just keep running and they don't actually stop, be present, and process. And when you do that, there's a freedom that comes, that when you get it, it's you run towards the freedom after that. It's really
Yes.
different.
Yeah, I
Oh,
love
it
that
feels so different.
you're pointing out how this is where that self-awareness piece comes in, and how you have to start to connect to the emotion, and what is, like, when you have a trigger, why am I getting triggered? What is the emotion that's behind that? Because a lot of times it's not what it seems like on the surface. It's actually much deeper than that. So I'm sure you had a lot of those like realizations.
Well, one of
Um
a big one too, is I was like, so I really am in tune with, like, if I'm feeling frustrated or angry towards another person, I'm pointing the finger, I'm doing the blame game. I know there's something there for me, because it's never has anything to do with the other person. Like, that's huge. I live by this in my day to day. And one of, like, the biggest aha moments is, I was really upset with somebody in my life, because I'm like, God, they just keep playing victim. It's so annoying. And it came into my awareness that I'm like, oh my God, I would only notice that they're playing victim because I still have something within me that plays victim. And I was doing it with, oh yeah, I acted crazy because my mom died, and I wasn't taking accountability for that. So I'm playing victim by, yeah, playing victim by basically saying, oh, it's fine. It's okay that I acted that way because my mom died. So once I brought that up to the surface, I no longer care if people play victim. I'm like, that's their journey. There's freedom there. It's so cool.
Yes.
So we want to know, I want to know how you went from, so you're exploring all these emotions and you're starting to heal yourself. And then what is it that led you into your purpose of helping other people realize this?
Well, there's several layers and pieces there, as I'm sure with even with you guys and what you do, like it's step by step. But I think the biggest one was so when my mom passed away, this is a long story short, but I met this spiritual medium, and she's like, you know that you're like highly intuitive, right? And I was like, what? I don't know, like. Oh, I guess.
What exactly does intuitive mean in your book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I ended up working with her and really like exploring my gifts, and it's incredible. And I was like, I got it. I'm going to go into the spiritual world. Like I totally was like, I got my purpose. Like I'm going to be doing this and astrology and, you know, whatever comes with it. And once I got addicted to Adderall again, and then ending up hiring another mentor and understanding the self-awareness piece, the presence piece, and the egoic mind piece, I was like, this is a game changer. Like this goes beyond anything that I ever could have imagined. And so I feel like, you know, from my mom passing away, that was like the pivotal, you know, moment for me that changed my entire life. Like I'm to a point where I can look back and be like, that's so sad that that happened, but it certainly meant, like, that was totally meant to happen, because I would not be where I am today if that did not happen. If I did not experience the trauma of her passing away, if I didn't numb the pain and get addicted, and if I didn't meet this mentor and explore self-awareness and come home to myself by just letting in painful emotions, like there's just so much there. And I think that those are really key moments in my life that led me to where I am now, to want to help others come home to themselves.
I love that, because everybody's purpose in life. Now you could think your purpose is being an executive, you know, selling car part. I don't care what you're selling, right? Selling something and making all this money. Like you think that's your purpose. But when you've achieved some of these things in life, you realize like, damn, that's not my purpose at all. That's how I felt like as when I was an executive. I'm like, this sucks. I feel like I'm not really living in what I'm supposed to. And what I've come to realize, the pain is always born from, or the purpose is always born from the pain. So many people will never find their purpose. And I go to a weekly men's group in church. And at some point we're talking about like living in God's purpose for us. So they ask like, who feels like they know their purpose? I'm like, dope, me. I got it now, you know? And I think there was 2 or 3 men, including me, that raised their hand. And all these men are struggling with trying to figure out where their purpose are at. But most of these men are struggling to even process the pain that they went through. And there's a freedom when you heal, not only for you, but the freedom that you can give to other people, because your story gives them the belief that they can overcome in the same way you did. So what I challenge people to do is like, listen to Alexis's story and say, damn, man, like if she can make it through all that, then so can I. And as you lean into that journey and into your own pain that you have to process, you end up uncovering your purpose. And there's a true happiness with that. I feel 25% happier than I've ever felt living in my purpose. And I would have robbed myself of that for my whole life if I didn't lean into this journey in the same way that you did. And so it's so cool to hear that dynamic. And I don't want people to not dig into that next layer of what you just said. And so as you look at yourself now and you think, okay, I went from pain to lessons to maximizing my potential and still doing it every day, like all of us should be doing, to stepping into my purpose in this self-discovery mode I've been into. You've learned some ultra transformational things that you've done. And I like to ask everybody on here, Steph and I, it's our favorite thing. What are 4 keys you can give somebody today that they can take right now? They're going to go write this down. And they're going to like, I'm going to execute on these 4 things Alexis is going to tell me. What are those 4 things that you can take that transform somebody's spiritual, their mind, their heart, all of it, and moves them forward into their purpose and potential?
I wrote them down. I wrote
It's almost
them
like
down.
you knew this question was coming.
I'm psychic. I told you. I'm so intuitive.
That's hilarious.
I love it.
So I would like to say this is from my own experience. Take what resonates, leave the rest behind, because I know there are moments where like I'll read a book and I'm like, this is trash. And then I'll read it like a year later. I'm like, this is a gold mine.
I'm glad you thought mine was
yeah.
a gold mine at first, by the way.
Yours is so good. It's so good. I was talking to somebody about it the other day, actually.
Oh, my
They're gonna
goodness.
read it. So the first one is I kind of said it earlier, but it's like have the courage to look within and take accountability for our triggers. Well, I'll say
Mhm.
our triggers, and especially if they're repeating.
Mm,
Because a lot of the time,
good point.
if they're repeating, it could absolutely have something to do with childhood trauma.
Mhm.
And there is a way out of it. Like there is freedom on the other side if you have the courage to look at it. So that's the first one. The second one is I would recommend becoming aware of your thoughts over and over and over again, because a lot of the times we're going throughout our day and we're not actually hearing what we're saying to ourselves. And so the moment that I separated myself, my authentic self, from my egoic mind,
Mm.
that was such a game changer in my life, because all of the things that I was saying to myself were like, you're unlovable, you're unworthy, you're a failure, you're this, you're that. Being able to separate the two, I'm like, oh, that's just my ego just talking in the background. That's not me. I would never say that to myself. So that was amazing. Like I do that daily. If I hear like some chitter chatter, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Oh, sorry.
No, because that's really what you say. That's what I tell myself too. Like, stop being a little, you know what, little chunk.
Sorry.
Hey, that's real. That's
Dude,
real.
That's real. Real stories, real people, real triumph. Let's go.
Real triumph. And then
I love it.
the third one is it's hard, it's painful, but feel all the emotions. I used to get so annoyed when people are like, just sit in your feelings. I'm like, what? Sit in my feelings? Like how long? Like I got a stopwatch over here. Like how long is this supposed to go on for? So I would say feel your feelings. We can go so in depth with that, but I think that's really important for the human experience, because you can't really understand your experience without understanding what you're feeling. Like there's purpose to all of it. The anger, the sadness, the grief. I actually wrote something last night. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I had this epiphany moment where I was like, pain feels like growth, or pain or hardship feels like growth, and peace feels like understanding. And so we have to experience the lowest of lows so we can experience the highest of highs. They're all important. So that's my third one.
Love that.
And then my fourth one, this one's so simple, but I feel like this is the most important. And I think this is why people maybe are attracted to my energy, is I like to play. I like to laugh. I like to have fun. And I think that a lot of us take ourselves so seriously. I get in those ruts where I'm just like, I'm serious. But I think that having play, being silly, talking with like your friends or your family, the ones that you can be the weirdest with, you know, play. Like, why are we taking everything so seriously? And that's my fourth one.
Love it.
Well, Alexis, we got to say, we're so thankful you came on today. We love hearing your story. I love your energy. I love that you have become so vulnerable with your story. And I think you're going to help so many people, because there's so many I know that can relate to you. And you just have a gift of being able to connect in a way that a lot of people can't. So I just want to let you know that keep doing what you're doing. We love it. We support you 100. And yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think. Look,
Thank
we
you.
don't have people on here, and we don't that we don't feel like align with our values, and nor will I ever. I don't care if they've got 100 million followers. This is really about serving this community, this legacy warrior community. And you do such an amazing job just being just an ambassador, one, a lot of times, right? And then a representative of what it means to live that kind of a life. And I want to make sure people understand, especially with the intuitive coaching, because you talked a lot about the 4 keys and the ego. And God, I can have an ego the size of Mount Everest if I'm not careful. The ego and how it paralyzes you, and the freedoms. And there's so many people walking around now, and especially, it's like always, right? And Steph and I talked about this a lot. Since COVID, things are kind of getting back to a normal busy for people, but people aren't the same anymore. I hear from so many people, they're just not happy. They don't know what their purpose is. They're trying to figure out, like, what's this next thing that I'm supposed to do in life? And you bring a ton of value through your lived experiences, and research and all the effort and work that you put into this from an intuitive coaching perspective to really help people shift from being really stuck and not knowing where to go next to being able to know what direction they're headed so that they can really find that happiness, frankly, that all of us deserve, but most of us don't know how to find. I lived for 44 years not really knowing how to find, like, that level I just always knew it was missing, man. And I just didn't know how to get it until I had a breakdown, and it forced me to go step into my purpose, what I'm doing now. Now I have it. So I think it's so cool that you do this as an intuitive coach and you help people discover what's missing so that they can live their life as the best them. Talked a little bit about that, especially if I'm missing any component of that. And then I want to make sure people understand where to find you. And then let's talk about what's next for you, because you have some cool stuff coming up too.
Well, first off, Stephanie, that means so much to me, and thank you. And I love both of you, and I'm just really happy that you brought me on. And then also, Walt beautifully said, like I said earlier, if you want to do sales for me, I'll bring you on board.
It was like old school. I just blacked out for a minute. I'm like, oh, what just happened? That's all I got.
It was so good. No, it was so good. But I think when people like think of divine interventionist, I mean, it is exactly what it is, divine intervention. And sometimes we need that in our life because I've, had clients where they're like, I've gone to, tons of different therapists. I've done the work, coaches, et cetera. And there's a moment where they're like, but I've done the work and I still feel like this. And so that's where divine intervention comes in. And the cool part about what I do is, like, yes, I have all these skills and I have this knowledge and wisdom, but what's different is I'm highly intuitive. It's like a megaphone, and that is my gift. And so I pull in information left and right, and I don't even know what they need. They know what they need. I just ask the best questions pulled from the divine or pulled from God, whatever your beliefs are, to be able to guide people to the place they want to go. And so that's kind of how it works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's good. And I think we all ultimately know where we want to go. We don't give ourselves permission to get there. Sometimes we don't know how to get there. We don't know the steps to get there. So having somebody that really serves as a guide that says, hey, let me ask you questions to uncover what you already know, but what you're not leaning into. And there's a lot of value in that, from the perspective of what people need. It's like, a lot of people say, tell people what they want, give them what they need. Some people just don't know what they need. And you ask 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, and all of a sudden they get you talked about an epiphany in this moment in your life earlier. We've all had them. And you get this moment where you're like, no, you know what? Damn, I should. Like what'd you say earlier? That just seems so easy, but it's not.
Right.
It's only easy once you figure it out. It's not while you're trying to. So how can people find you that are listening to this? And like, I want to reach out to Alexis right now. Where do they go to reach out to you?
So you can either go to my website. I don't know why I said it like that.
You just got all country right there. Y'all come on, go to her website.
I'll head on over.
Go yonder.
Gosh, what's happening to me? I told you, I was like, after 45, 60 minutes, like I get weird. So my website, iammoonchild.com, or you can follow me on Instagram. I am Moonchild Official. I think it's the same on Facebook. That's just like facebook.com/I am Moonchild Official. Oh, and then I'm also can I just do like a
You
plug
can do whatever you
for
want.
Okay,
Do it.
cool. So I'm also a co-host on a podcast with Heath Cummings. He's amazing. It's called Live This Life Podcast. It's really fun. We get into it's cool because like I'm super spiritual and like bringing that side of things, and he's more scientific, but he's open to my side of things, and so it's kind of like a cool collaboration and fun conversation. So Live This Life Podcast. But I think that's how you can find me. And I would love to connect. Like I love this. Even if you have a question, like let's go.
So I love that. And by the way, look in the show notes if you didn't pick up on it, but it's iammoonchild.com. And then I am on for the website, and then Instagram is I am Moonchild Official. But I'll also put the hyperlinks into the show notes so that it's easier to find if you're driving or something right now. And and I love Heath too. You know, I got an opportunity to be on his podcast. Gosh, I don't know, probably it was a hot minute ago, close to 2 years ago. And the two of you guys together just be cracking me up. Y'all are like the dynamic duo. So it's a super fun show to listen to, and one that I absolutely endorse. And it's funny because Heath was a cop for a long time, and you guys have very different personalities.
Yeah.
But both of you guys have very fun personalities. So it's super cool to listen to. And so we talked a little bit about what's next for you. Talk about that, because I love putting stuff out into the world, and once you do it, you kind of got to do it. So talk about what's next for you.
I was just gonna say, like, this is my accountability.
He's not letting you off the hook.
I know, I love that.
You know me almost 2 years. You know how we do it.
I'm on blast over here. Jeez. Never coming on this podcast again.
Too late.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am still coaching if anybody is interested, but my next big thing, what I'm really excited about, and I'm also so afraid of, but let's go, is I'm creating my own YouTube series and also Spotify podcast. But the reason I'm not doing a podcast is I like the video component, so I will be doing that in the near future. I'm just going step by step. That's all I can do. I'm not trying to get a big picture.
Having the courage to take the damn step.
Yes.
Like, you guys
We're
out there
excited for
listening, have the courage. Do it scared. Like, you don't even know what you're capable of until you do it. If it scares you, it's meant for you. And so lean all the way in, because I promise you, we've had some scary moments, all three of us on this show. And then we do it, and you're like, damn, that
wasn't that bad.
Good.
Yeah.
I guess I'm pretty good at this. So Alexis, like Stephanie said, thank you so much for being on the show. I love you, my friend. It's just been such a blessing to have you on here. And, you know, we talk about divine timing a lot, all in divine timing. And it's just been loads of fun. And heck, it was fun. I don't know, it was like an hour and a half of us catching up before we even started the show. So even that was fun. So thank you for making time and space for us and our audience today. We just really appreciate you being on here. What a blessing.
Thank you so much, you guys. It was so fun. So fun. I could talk to you all day.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why we had to start the show at some point, because we were literally talking all day. So look, guys, join us next week as Steph and I talk about life choices and the power in choosing your hard, and how choosing your hard will either leave you in quiet desperation, or it will lead you into a life that's extraordinary. You just heard from somebody today who chose their hard and chose the hard that led them into a life that's extraordinary. And you could do the same thing too. So look, as always, if this episode resonated with you, take some time, send it in a text to somebody, share it with somebody, send it to them on IM that you know can find value from this, because you might be the thing that helps them choose their heart and leads them into the next phase of their life. You might be the one person that shines a light in the darkness for them. So don't deny them that opportunity because you think that maybe they'll pick up on it at some other point. And as always, you can go to our YouTube channel and you can see all of three of us banter. And you can see the beginning of this.
So much better.
Alexis had some light on her. The light was shining down on her. And you can go to our YouTube channel at Legacy Warrior Podcast, or go hit us up on Insta at Legacy Warrior Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. We've gotten so many great show ideas that have done so well based upon people who've listened. And you know, just it's our motivation too.
Yeah, we want to hear from you guys. What do you want us to talk about? What is going to help you out there? Please share that with us.
And you guys already know how we finish. So until the next time, stay in the arena of life, keep fighting, keep taking steps forward, and
Leave this world a little bit better than you found it.
see y'all next Tuesday.